physical abuse, mocking, being spat upon, beat. Romans used an instrument known as a cat of nine tails. It included a set of leather straps bound together. At the end of each strap, sharp objects such as metal or glass were woven into the strands. This would rip the flesh and inflict even more pain. That roughly would wrap around his back and yank it and rip his flesh. Roman tradition stated that a prisoner who was condemned to die could be flogged up to 39 times. You know, I'm saying we probably all saw the movie, The Passion. And you know, in that scene where Jesus was being whipped and beaten by the Roman soldiers, you know, they kept beating, and I'm sitting there thinking, that's enough. It's enough, quit. It's enough. And you know, I tried to watch it again. I couldn't watch it the next time. I couldn't watch it. But you have to think, you know, that was in our place. If he did that, he took that pain and suffered. And you know, he was near death when he was brought to the cross. So as the beating continued, like I said, I believe this is, but to me, and I think we'll think of this today, outside the physical beating, I think the worst act a person could do to another is spat upon. I believe this is the worst insult a person can do. In biblical times, spitting held significant cultural and symbolic meanings. It was not uncommon for people in ancient Near Eastern cultures to use spitting as a gesture of contempt, disgust, or rejection. Spitting on someone was considered an act of insult and humiliation aimed at demeaning the person being spat upon. I believe that holds true today. I believe somebody that gets spit, you got fire in their hands. It's spit. I used it against. It used to be against. I don't even remember. Maybe it's still on the books. You know, used some of these old laws. They look. Used to be against the law to spit on the streets or spit on the sidewalk. It's probably still on the laws.
That was enacted when tuberculosis was so popular.
Yeah, right. Yes, right. I got in trouble with my uncle one time for spitting on him. We were over at my grandparents, and I don't know where my mother and dad is. I guess I'd go with somebody. I was already over there with my grandparents, and my parents were coming later. But I was in the kitchen, and my uncle was sitting in the door, in the chair in the door, and I was wanting to go around him, and he wouldn't let me play with me, and I spit on him. Next thing I found him, I was across his knees. And I got a spanking from him. Well, I couldn't wait till my daddy got there so I could tell on him. Well, when I got there, I knew better than to tell him. It was spanking. Yeah, I was spanking. But I learned a lesson there. I don't know, I probably now 4 or 5 years old, but I learned that lesson there. But the last part of verse 39, you know, I have highlighted in my Bible. After death on the cross, on the third day, he will rise again. Oh, that's what it's all about. All this beating and the humiliation being spat upon, he'll rise again. And that, you know, if he didn't rise again, it'd all be in vain. We're all here sitting just for the fun of it. And because he rose again, we have redemption through him. Someone read now Mark 35 through 40.
James and John, the sons of Zebedee, approached him and said, "Teacher, we want you to do whatever we ask you. What do you want me to do for you?" He asked them. They answered him, "Allow us to sit at your right and your left in your glory." Jesus said to them, "You don't know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup I drink and to be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with?" "We are able," they told him. Jesus said to them, "You will drink the cup I drink, and you will be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with. But to sit at my right or left is not mine to give. Instead, it is for those for whom it has been prepared."
How many times when our children were young, we got children, and some of them they come up to us and say, "I have a question, but I want you to say yes before you answer it." We've done that, and maybe we did that too when we were children. "I got this question, but I want you to answer it yes before you hear the question." we've been guilty of the same thing. You know, we wanted to go somewhere or go with some friends or something, and we wanted to get an answer before our parents knew the question. Or we'd say, well, what's the question? Well, never mind. I just want a yes. You know, we've all done that or been through it. Excuse me. James and John were the sons of Zebedee. I always remember. I think Zebedee, who was a Galilean fisherman. When we were living in Brownwood, we had some friends that would have a Bible, and we were reading this part here, and they all got to laugh at it. I was reading it, and I said, Zebedee. So I think about that every time. I need to make sure it's Zebedee or something like it. In Matthew 20 through 28, the mother asked Jesus the question. Now some say that's it's contradiction, but more than likely she was there with them when they were traveling, and she said, "Pick my two sons; they're more deserving than the rest of them." And some say that this may have been an aunt of Jesus. It could have been. So she said, "Well, we got to have some little special treatment." Cousins, yes. You could have been cousins, yes. So, but this is not a contradiction because the three, like I said, could have been present when the question was asked. But the thing is, the two didn't get it. They didn't know what they were asking, yes. And they failed to grasp what Jesus was telling his followers because their request was extremely inappropriate. First, their request revealed a lack of discernment related to Jesus' ministry and purpose. His mission was not to grant their wishes. It reminds me of when we were kids. You remember kids would be playing games and we'd choose sides and have a captain on each side, and there's always one. Pick me. You know? And usually it was the worst one. They keep avoiding them. Trying to get to the last one. Okay, come on, then. But there was always one here hollering, pick me. And that's kind of like here, you know, James and John, pick me. You know, I'm the best. But also their attempt to gain prime seats in the kingdom demonstrated an unhealthy ambition bordering on arrogance. Additionally, it was a request from selfish motives and spiritual ignorance. The disciples still thought the physical manifestation of the kingdom was about to appear and were busy maneuvering for the places of prominence in it. You know, they thought, still thinking, hoping Jesus is going to set up an earthly kingdom, and I want to be seated next to him, and I want to be in charge of this, and I want to be in charge of that. But his mission was not to grant their wishes. Jesus asked the question, are you able to drink the cup that I drink? The cup was a Jewish metaphor that described either joy or divine judgment, depending on the context. Jesus would drink from the cup to pay the cost of humanity's sins. Okay, let's read Mark 14:36.
And he said, Abba, Father, all things are possible to thee. Take away this cup from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what thou wilt.
Jesus' cup was to die on the cross and to suffer our sins. And you know, I wonder sometimes when Jesus prayed this prayer, he knew the answer. But you know, he willingly went to the cross to die for our sins. Sometimes, like I said, I wonder, you know, why he saw. The thing is death. He saw what lay before him. You know, we can't see what lay before us. We can't see what's in the road ahead of us. But he saw it, and I think he was probably experiencing the pain then of his suffering. And I just can't imagine going through that. And you know, we've all people that have given their lives in combat and military, have given their lives, but not for the whole world, not for the sin of mankind. And to lay that on your shoulders, it's unimaginable. We just, I don't know.
I would say you.
Yes, I mean.
But he also told us how to pray.
Yes.
We got these wishes, these requests we got, but from our will.
Not yes, and he prayed the same thing, not my will but thine. And but But he had already told his disciples what this cup would entail. Insults, torture, cursing, death. It was a cup that would cost him everything. And he drank from it so others would not have to. Later disciples, other than John and Judas, would suffer martyr death. John would well, I'm trying to think of James would be the first martyr. And of course, we know John would be exiled to the Isle of Patmos. What happened to Judas? We know what happened to Judas. But they would drink from their own cups of suffering as well. But their suffering would be very different from what Jesus would do. They would not suffer for the sins of the world. You know, we look at Peter. He was hung, his foot upside down. Requested to be hung upside down. And you know, in a lot of martyrs, a lot of Christian martyrs, the Romans would use them and stake them on the side of the road and use them as torches to light the roads. And I just can't imagine that. You know, and that'd be a horrible slow death. And you know, we know what it's like to touch something hot. And but to think about burning for eternity and not being consumed, and Jesus did that for us. But they would partake of the same baptism, which in the Old Testament images, baptism was a picture of being overcome by tragedy. And that description of what Jesus was about to face on the cross. James and John believed that they were ready to follow his example, but Jesus knew better. They didn't know what they were talking about really back then. In time, though, they would share in his suffering. Like I said earlier, James was the first disciple to die on martyr's death. Like I said, John would be persecuted consistently throughout his life. Like Jesus, tragedy would be transformed into victory. Jesus then told the two who would sit on his right hand or his left was not his to give. The two got the answer they were not looking for. Jesus never indicated who would hold the positions of honor. I've often wondered, who holds these positions? It doesn't say. It doesn't say. Sometimes I think maybe Moses and Elijah. I don't know. We don't know. But we don't know. There are positions there that will sit on the right and left hand of Christ. But like I said, there's no, we won't know until we get to heaven. What? It's in his time, yes. Well, it could be, yeah. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
I would have said, hey, boys, no Trump. I want to cross my left and right.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. I would adjust it a little more.
Yeah.
You could hang around with me.
Right. And we don't know, like I said, it's but I wondered, who are the two?
One made it, the other one didn't.
That's right. It wasn't me, just one of them. But he could be referring to when he goes to the cross, it could be one on each side of it. He could be referring to that. I hadn't thought of that. But we don't know. He didn't mention it. I think it was there was a reason. He didn't mention who it would be. But you remember the transfiguration? We go back to that. There's Moses and Elijah. Yeah. And all we can do is assume.
But you could have been referring to that they were already picked.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They were already picked, I think. Yes. Right. And like I said, it's not one of these, not real relevant. It's not, we don't get tied up on it. It's about
The arrogance of position.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Lieutenant General.
Yeah.
They told me they want to go right to work. I want to be boss.
Yeah, I want to be boss. Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to have to start at the bottom. Right. Yeah. And so, it's I guess it's a topic for suggestion, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. It's kind of like I remember Brother Jim saying there was the seminary, there was some seminary students arguing over how many angels you can put on the head of a needle or a pin. what difference does it make?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well, I was just thinking about having that kind of, well, with all the questions that we come up with.
oh, yeah,
It's like wondering minds.
right, yes, wondering minds, yes. But, the answer is usually here in God's word.
We need is.
What we need is here, yes. But the two got the answer, like I said, they were not looking for. Jesus never indicated, like I said, who held that position of honor. But Jesus made it clear he didn't have the authority to give these positions away. That's another question. In Matthew's gospel, Jesus said that the Father was responsible for granting those two seats. Why didn't Jesus know? That's a good question.
He referred to the Father.
He was all knowing, omniscient. As human, though, he retained complete deity, but Jesus also imposed voluntary limitations on himself as a human. He said, I don't know. But only God knows who will be seated there next to me. And you know that? Sure. Right.
Only the Father knows the day.
Only Father knows. And that's kind of hard for us to sometimes to distinguish, but he was all knowing, he was deity and all knowing, but yet he was all human too. And there's things like I said, he had limitations, he voluntarily put limitations on himself as a human. And you know, that's kind of, to me, kind of hard to grasp too. How could he, as Jesus, how could he do that? And it's like I said, it's hard for me to grasp and understand. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And there's things too that we as people, we put limitations on ourselves. That we do, that we could, and things that we could do, or things, but we limit ourselves. And, you know, we could get on the highway and run 100 miles an hour, but we limit ourselves, we're supposed to the speed limit. But we can, we're able, and but, you know, it's maybe not a good example, but we all put limitations on ourselves. And as far as things that we do and can't do. But Jesus, like I said, and it's hard to understand, or at least hard for me, that he voluntarily put limitations on himself. How could he? It's kind of like turning the light switch on and off, in a way. When he got to like, you know, he didn't know. He said, I don't know. God, that's up to God, he sits there. It's kind of like he cut the switch off and say that only God knows. So anyway, that's another thing. We'll find out who's sitting there when we get to heaven.
It won't matter.
Won't be one of us, I don't think.
I won't be asking that question, I'll be thanking you for being there.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And well, here's my mind going. You know, we get to heaven, we'll see that empty seat, and we got sneaking up to it. But we get a tap on the shoulder, you got my seat. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's Moses standing there. Yeah, you need to get up. Okay, someone read verse 41 through 45.
And when the 10 heard it, they began to be much displeased with James and John. But Jesus called them to him, and said unto them, You know that they which are appointed to rule over the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and their great ones exercise authority upon them. But so shall it not be among you. But whosoever will be great among you shall be your minister. And whosoever of you will be the chiefest shall be servant of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many.
Jealousy takes over, doesn't it? With the other disciples. They became displeased or indignant toward James and John, meaning a feeling of showing anger because of something unjust. That's what indignant means. They were probably upset because they didn't think of it first. The word displeased here suggests that the 10 disciples were angry over a perceived wrong done to them or an insult toward them. In other words, James and John, y'all are insulting us. You know, we didn't have a chance to ask that. I think the bottom line was they were jealous and scared to death Jesus was going to grant the two brothers' request. You know, why do they get to sit there? You know, they're no better than we are. Well, Jesus is still, but they're my cousins. But two things are clear about the disciples' indignation. First, they shared the same spiritual blindness as James and John. At the moment, they were no more concerned about Jesus' suffering than the two brothers were. Second, their indignation was likely rooted in the fact that each of them longed for those same positions of greatness. You know, there was some jealousy, there was some debate amongst them, you know, who's the greatest, and all those questions, and they still didn't get it. You know, 3 years with Jesus, and they're still not getting it. But they will, eventually. And I think it's one reason Jesus had to leave and die, that they may learn through their ministries. But they just hadn't gone around to asking Jesus. That's the reason they beat James and John beat them to it. To restore a sense of unity, Jesus pulled the 12 together and began to compare and contrast greatness from the world's perspective and from the kingdom perspective. As noted, the disciples were thinking of power like the Romans did, worldly power. And you know, they were going to be the greatest.
I think it really shows their humanity.
Oh, yeah.
Because in John, even in the book of John, he shows his humanity
Sure.
in a couple of different places. He's like, yeah, when we ran to the tomb, I beat Peter.
Yeah, that's right.
And another one, how does he refer to himself in the third person?
Right.
I'm the disciple of Jesus.
Jesus love. Yeah. Right.
It shows his humanity.
Right. And it is. And we look at all of them, they were human. And where were they when Jesus was crucified? John was the only one there. And we know of that. And Peter denied him 3 times. And how many times have we denied him? In one way or another. And, which was Linda was talking this morning. He said, you know, when someone says something or uses foul language, he said, should I speak up? And especially in your home. I said, it's your home. You tell me that's not allowed in your house. And as simple as that. And I know all my kids, grandkids, know better. And they use it in my house. And, you know, like I've said before, you know, I've got my mouth washed out with soap when I was little. And I've got some of my experience. My kids did too. Their kids did too. We passed it on down. But they saw power as a way of control, the ones they would be conquered. In contrast, God defines authority and greatness through a much different comprehension of perception. In his structure of life, greatness means being a servant. Mark used the term minister in the King James and slave in the New American Standard. The term referred to household workers who waited tables. Our English word deacon derives from this word. The word translated servant in verse 44 is doulos, D-O-U-L-O-S, which referred to a person who was owned by someone else and had no rights unless granted by the master. Both images would have flown in the face of the disciples' ideas about greatness. But to minister and give his life a ransom for many, the common Greek term often referred to the price paid to free a slave. In New Testament writers, you know, I think of 3 John, when John was writing, it wasn't John, it's Peter. Paul was writing to Onesimus. Philemon. Yeah, I said Philemon, that's right. And Paul was writing to the slave, the runaway slave. And Paul writes back to treat him as a brother. But the New Testament writers gave the word an additional meaning suggesting redemption or release. For believers, ransom is all about the substitution provided by Jesus. Jesus voluntarily paid our ransom price by giving his life for our place. In doing so, he freed us from slavery to sin so we could become slaves to God. I think it reminded of the picture of Hosea when He bought back his wife. She left. Of course, it's a picture of Israel, but it also is a picture too of mankind, where as slaves to sin, the slave to sin, but Hosea was commanded God to buy her back, and that pay the ransom, pay the price for the slave, and that's what Jesus did for us. He paid the price to free us from slavery. I think of the song in closing, the song, Jesus paid it all, and all to him I owe. And he did. He paid the ransom for all of us. Any comments? We've got a few minutes left.
45 restaurant almost that.
Yes, it does.
It's for even Son of Man, he's God.
Yes.
He had every right in the world to demand terms, for everybody comes in. But no, but it didn't come to be servant.
Right.
He came to serve. But to serve and to give his life a ransom to men.
Yes.
We humans think winning is overcoming things in this life.
Yes.
He said there's more things.
Right. And I think that's something that probably we've always struggled with is serving others, and serving in like I said, I can't think of words, but Jesus' perspective to not to be head or this or that, but to serve. And that's sometimes hard for mankind to comprehend sometimes.
Wash the feet.
Yes, and wash the feet, yes, yes. Some churches still do that.
Yeah, humbling well, there's no where we can.
Yeah. What we used to call the hard shell Baptist, or premill or primitive in the hard shell, they still wash the feet.
We did it at the chapel. It's very humbling.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it interesting? He said he came to serve, and that doesn't mean
That's
that
right.
he did their every whim.
Right. Without,
He did what was best for them.
yes.
But you know, the tremendous blessing you get when you help somebody. Like that couple that helped you with the flat tire.
Yeah.
They didn't, money couldn't take away the joy they got.
Yes. But we lead, that's what I'm trying to say, we lead by serving. And just like Brother Steve leads by serving, and we all as deacons, we lead by serving. And that's hard for some to grasp sometimes, that we all lead by serving others. And maybe teaching the youth, the little ones, we all lead by serving. And like I said, it's hard for us sometimes to grasp. But I want to be in charge. And we had a kind of, when I worked for the government, and we worked for sometimes with the survey crew. And sometimes the inspectors, the survey crew was made up of some inspectors who didn't have jobs. And we had one inspector, we would let him be in charge. Because if he didn't want in charge, he'd just suck. So we just let him be in charge. So everybody was happy and he was happy. And we got, like Steve Church Christ. I don't know, Connie would leave me on that. But it is, and that is hard for us to grasp sometimes. And even with our children, we lead by serving. And it's not giving them everything they want, or when our children were little, but that's an example to them. Our children, our grandchildren, and we lead by serving. And it's hard to, like I said,
Serve up that discipline, that word.
serve up that discipline too. Yeah.
That word no.
Yeah, no.
These are the first one they learn.
Yeah, and it's and of course people some are critical of that. Why? Because I said so. That's all.
They need to understand that.
Because I said so. A quick note, and I don't know. Of course, I don't know what it is. Well, I do know. I noticed about the last week or two on the internet, on MSN. There's one article every week trying to contradict the Bible and Christianity, and it's Satan at work. And it's like I said, it's every day something on there. Like 10 reasons the Bible there's mistakes in the Bible, things like that. And it just, yeah, I don't either. I just see the headlines. I don't read them but of course, if I read it, it's not gonna affect me, but still, it just you hit the delete button or whatever.
It's like following Nancy Negative.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but you can't, like I said, and it's an attack on Christianity by Satan. 10 reasons why, there's 7 reasons why people don't go, Christians don't go to church anymore. I mean, and they were just silly. I read about this, I mean, they were just silly. In other words, they don't need to. And we know better than that. We need each other. We need the fellowship and the growing and studying together. But anyway, that's just delete it or just go on. Don't even. It's just it's Satan at work.
There's a book out now, someone was saying it, warning parents to be careful with like talks from God or something.
Yeah.
Conversations
From God, and it's totally not.
Oh yeah.
Inspiration.
God.
Yeah. If you see that conversation, you think, oh, well, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Some other.
Conversation.
But
with God.
there's gotta be another way to have it without Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to explain that away.
Yeah, I heard that and I've used it before. And Gerald Mann used to be a Baptist preacher. He had some of them in the watch, but I heard it several years ago. He already preaching as a thing. He said, I finally realized that I agree with Mohammed that there's another way to the top of the mountain.
He would say that.
Yeah, he would say that. Okay, we ready to go. He had shown me his watch. Yeah, why don't you dismiss this, please?
Father, we just thank you for the opportunity to come together and sit and freely discuss your word. Lord, I pray that you help us to take these truths that you've revealed to us and apply them to our lives as we run better image you daily. Amen.
Amen.
Everybody, Krista's on the mend.
All right.
I wondered.
Thank you.